The word transcendence in this movie means the process by which a computer takes on a human consciousness. Now that's some pretty controversial territory right there. That's what you realize about this movie right off the bat, is that it's very bold. It's not afraid to go into places that are controversial or that people's going to question. It sets some very high standards for itself right off the bat, and I don't know that that's a good thing. Johnny Depp plays Dr. Will Castor. He's a scientist that's trying to develop a computer with human consciousness. And during the course of the movie, during the course of events that take place, he becomes terminally ill with radiation poisoning. And he and his wife, Evelyn, who's played by Rebecca Hall, decide to actually upload his own consciousness onto this machine. The main problem I had with this movie was that it didn't have anywhere near the impact that it was meant to have. You can tell it's the kind of movie that's supposed to get inside your head and it's supposed to bother you or at least affect you in some way, and it really didn't do that. There are some spooky parts, there's some kind of creepy parts, especially when Johnny Depp kind of becomes this computerized person and his voice is all computerized. That's a little creepy, but it's not anything that's going to stick with you and anything that you're going to be thinking about hours after the movie's over. And that's what was intended. That's what they were going for when they made this movie. And they didn't accomplish that. There were a lot of things that I liked about the movie. There were two opposing sides in the movie. There was the scientists who were creating the artificial intelligence, and then you had a group that was opposed to the AI, and they were basically domestic terrorists. I mean, they did some pretty heinous things, but even so, you could really see their point, and you couldn't help but agree with them on some level. At the same time, you could also sympathize with Johnny Depp's character and these people who were trying to create the artificial intelligence. And I like that. There really wasn't a clean-cut villain. Nobody actually felt like the villain in the movie, and I think that's a good thing. You don't always have to have a villain. You can have conflict without having that traditional villain. Most of the movie I found interesting. The subject matter is interesting. It did a good job of holding my attention. I've heard some people say that they thought this movie was boring. I didn't see it that way at all. I was pretty interested in it most of the way through, up until probably the last 10 or 15 minutes. It was pretty engaging. It wasn't too long, and everything kind of happened quickly. The director of this film is named Wally Feister. He's worked with Christopher Nolan in the past as a cinematographer. This is the first movie that he's directed, and him being a cinematographer, there's no surprise that the movie looks great. It's a great looking movie. Everything looks fantastic. From the director's side, I felt like it was a fairly well made movie. It flowed pretty well. It was pretty easy to follow up until the final act. The final act, everything kind of fell apart, but up until that, I thought it was a well-made movie. The one problem I had from a filmmaking aspect was the way that they used Morgan Freeman. They had Morgan Freeman in this movie, and I felt like anybody could have played the part that he played. He didn't stand out. You didn't even notice hardly that it was Morgan Freeman. And when you have Morgan Freeman in your movie, and people can't actually notice that it's Morgan Freeman, then you've done something wrong. The ending of this movie is pretty bad. It's kind of confusing. It's like there's a lot of action in the final act, and up until that point there had been pretty much no action. It was pretty much just a straight psychological thriller. Then the ending comes along, and it's like they all of a sudden just try to throw all this action in it, and it makes it real confusing and real muddled, and it's hard to kind of get a grip on what's going on, and that's when the movie kind of falls apart. I really didn't understand what the movie was trying to tell me at the end. I didn't understand the message that they were obviously trying to convey. The ending just definitely left a lot to be desired. It's not a terrible movie. It's not a great movie by any means. I think if you go to see this movie because it's got Johnny Depp in it, you're probably going to be disappointed, because it don't really feel like a Johnny Depp movie. Not that he's not good in the movie, because he is. He does a good job. But it's just more like a movie that Johnny Depp is in, more so than a movie that revolves around Johnny Depp like we've seen recently. Aside from the bad ending, it was pretty easy to follow, like I said, and I was pretty interested in it. And it's not a bad movie. I enjoyed watching it for the most part. I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought of the movie. And if you want to read my written reviews, go to Facebook, like the Movie Man page.